Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about specifically the tabletop role-playing game advice. If you're having fun, you're doing it right. And my posit on that advice is that it is incorrect, and it is not good advice for any tabletop role player ever, right? It's just incorrect. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that, but first, I just want to talk a little bit about this specific video and being a tabletop role-playing game commentator and the responsibilities that carries, right? So yesterday I cut this exact same video and I talked about this exact same topic, but I was really dialed up. And the reason why is when I heard this advice from someone within the TRPG commentator community, the community of tabletop role-playing game commentators, I was miffed. I was really, really miffed. And mighty miffed, right? That's a good way of saying it. And, basically, so I cut my video and it was just miff central. I was just like, it was filled with my miffery, being mighty miffed. And it was, it was really dialed up a lot, and it wasn't good. In that, okay, so here's the issue, right? I'm part of the TRPG commentator community. And so, it's easy to just jump in and tear somebody down. And believe it or not, it actually raises your views on YouTube. But, I am a tabletop role-playing game commentator. I take that responsibility seriously. And I feel like I need to be honest with what I'm putting forward. And also I need to be controlled, right? Like, emotional content gets views on YouTube. And I think, a lot of times when you're pouring more emotion into your content than intellect, it can be a bad mix. I think all commentary, all good commentary should have emotion in it, right? It should be passionate, right? But it should not be divorced from intellect. And I looked at my content, I watched my content from yesterday, and I'm like, I think there's way more emotion in this than intellect, right? And so, trying to be respectful to you as the viewer, trying to be respectful to the tabletop role-playing game community, I'm recutting this video and trying to come at it from a more honest, respectful perspective. All right, okay. Well, actually, I think I was very honest yesterday. I'm just coming at it from a more respectful perspective. I don't think there was any issue with honesty yesterday. All right, so let's jump into it. All right. So this advice, if you're doing it right, you're having fun. So I was listening to a podcast, a tabletop role-playing game podcast that I enjoy. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to take their shine, right? Like, and the reason why is I think I listened to this 2 days ago, right? And I thought, man, that is really incorrect information. They are giving incorrect information to the tabletop role-playing game community, and that really miffed me, right? And but my point is, I've listened to a lot of their content previous to that, and they are they're good. They know tabletop role playing games. They're smart guys, and so I really feel like it's unfair to take one piece of their content and claim it's the whole of their content. So rather than that, I'm just going to say, any tabletop role playing game commentator who is telling you if you're having fun, you're doing it right, you should use that. Your ear should perk up like a rabbit hearing the keening of a wolf. Okay, because this is very, very bad. It's bad advice. It is very bad advice. All right, so it's incorrect. It is not good. All right, so let's talk about it in depth. All right, so here's why. One, it breaks down on so many different levels, right? So the first level that it breaks down on is when you're saying that who's that you to, right? And it's not specific who that you is to, right? So one, if you're a game master and you take this advice to heart and you're having fun, here's the ways it can break down. A common tabletop role-playing game, you're going to have one game master and 4 players. Let's take this from the perspective of a game master. So the game master is having fun. Well, they may be including something in the game that's very fun for them, but that's offensive or upsetting to one of the players. Okay. The next problem they may have is not understanding why their players are at the table. Right. Many game masters don't understand why every single person is at their table, and I'm convinced that there are a lot of reasons that people are at the tabletop role-playing game, and many people within our community assume that the people who are playing tabletop role-playing games are playing because they enjoy playing tabletop role-playing games, and that's not the case for everybody. There are people who will be at a tabletop role-playing game table because they want to be close to a friend, or they want to be close to a family member, or they want to be close to a paramour, right? So that's another reason why somebody might be at your table. So what's fun for them, that could be really abstract. What's actually fun for that player, right? So that even if you're trying to make everybody have fun, if you don't fundamentally understand why the people are at your table, you could be in trouble, right, with this advice, right? In addition to that, you could have players who really want to practice their accent. You could have players who really want to play the game, to play tabletop role-playing games the way people play chess, right? They want to create a really good build, and they want to show tactical dominance. And you could have other players who really don't care about that at all, right? And they could all be at the same table easily. So this whole advice, it breaks down at that level. It really is not going to serve you, right? And so the advice of, if you're having fun, you're doing it right, is fundamentally bad advice, okay? And and if you use it, it simplifies. Everybody wants to say that there's a huge track of tabletop role-playing game commentators. They're trying to tell everybody it's not that hard, it's easy to do, and it's not. It's so incorrect, right? Tabletop role-playing, being a game master, is incredibly difficult. It is hard. You have to master multiple skills to do it well. And my take on that is invite people in and say, listen, this is roller skating, man. You're going to fall, and you're going to scrape your elbow, and you're going to get blood on your knees, right? So don't get upset when this fails. In order to do this, you have to do it a while before it gets good. Rather than tell them, oh, it's easy, and if you're having fun, you're doing it right. That's just not the case, man. Like, there's a specific, proper path to being a good game master, and there's 50 to 100 ways it can go really bad, and you can waste 4 hours of 4 people's lives, and that's not cool, man. That's 16 hours of life, just thrown down a drain because you're not doing it right? There is a path to excellent game mastering. There are multiple paths, but there's not infinite paths. There really aren't, right? And so that's my issue, is that it is very bad advice. Okay. All right. So one, it breaks down from that level. The next one is, why are people saying this, right? There's 3 sources for this information, in my opinion. There's ignorance, there is disrespect, and there's obfuscation. Now, ignorance is, I think a lot of tabletop role-playing game players say this, tabletop role-playing game commentators say this because it sounded good when they heard it, and now they're parroting it, and they're being ignorant, right? Now, ignorant is not, like, a lot of people think that's a negative term. It just means lacking knowledge, right? And so they're lacking the knowledge of why this breaks down on so many levels, right? The next one is disrespect. So people who say, often people who will say, if you're doing it right, if you're having fun, you're doing it right, they're being disrespectful of the game. They believe the following line, and I've heard this one from the same group of people, and that is, oh, well, tabletop role-playing games are just make-believe with a few more rules, just like when you were playing, playing Cops and Robbers when you were a kid, and now you're just adding a few rules to it. And this is fundamentally disrespectful to the game. It took years for Gary Gygax to build the first tabletop role-playing game, and it's taken us 4 decades to master this, what has really become an element of Americana, a wonderful hobby, a wonderful industry, and a wonderful form of art, right? And it is incredibly disrespectful. And one of the reasons why I believe that is, I think very strong analogs for tabletop role-playing games are sports and art. And you do not hear this line anywhere in high-end performers within art and within sports. You don't hear Michael Jordan saying, if you're having fun, you're doing it right. As long as you can throw a free throw any way you want, buddy. No, he's saying, hey, there might be a few different ways to do this, but you need to practice and you need to get good. And the same thing, like the high-end, New York artists who have gallery shows, none of them are saying if you're having fun, you're doing it right. They take their art and their hobby and their industry seriously, right? And that's the issue. Is this is all three of them. It's an industry, it's an hobby, and it's a hobby, and it's art. And the reality is, there, the whole idea of if you're having fun, you're doing it right, absolutely does not belong anywhere near the mouth of a tabletop role-playing game commentator. And the reason why is by commentating ad nauseum at length about tabletop role-playing games, you're saying I'm in the deep end of the pool, right? Like that's the point. If people are coming to you for advice, then it is incredibly disrespectful to be it's just disrespectful. It is really disrespectful. It's not realizing what tabletop role-playing games actually are and how much they mean to any community that's actually seeking advice to do it well, right? So that's and then the last one is obfuscation, right? When you're a tabletop role-playing game commentator, you are speaking from authority, okay? I speak from authority on tabletop role-playing games. Where does that authority come from? And every other tabletop role-playing games commentator speaks from the same level of authority, from the same sources of authority, certainly not the same level, right? So where's my authority that allows me to speak on tabletop role-playing games as a commentator, right? Here's the authority. One, I've played. I have thousands of hours of play. I have hundreds of hours of play. I have well over 1,000 hours of game mastering, and I have hundreds of hours, if not well over 1,000 hours, of research right? Hundreds of hours of research. No, with podcasts, listening to podcasts, definitely over 1,000 hours of research on the topic. In addition to this, I am a purchaser. I'm a collector, right? I collect tabletop role-playing games, and I have books on my shelf that I paid $60 for that aren't worth $5, right? I've made mistakes, and I've learned from those mistakes, right? And so my authority comes from having made mistakes and learning from those mistakes, right? So I'm a collector, I'm a purchaser, I'm a player, I'm a game master, and every single commentator who's speaking is speaking from the authority that they've earned from their experience, which is more experience than the people who they are listening to, or the majority of people who are listening to them, okay? And so now here's the issue of obfuscation. I think when I heard this person, this TRPG commentator the other day, at the beginning of an hour-long podcast that went into incredibly fine detail on rules and on tactics and on how to be a good game master, the person said, well, if you're doing it right, you're having fun. And what they were trying to say is, I don't want to speak with authority, because if I speak with authority, then I own the words I say. Oh, and then also, I'm the authority. And that's not cool. I want to stand on, I want to lean against the wall and roll my eyes at the authority. I don't want to be the authority. Well, guess what? I'm a TRPG commentator. I have authority on this topic that I've earned through experience, right? And I own that. And when I say something wrong, I have to come back on my channel and say, hey, I was wrong about that. Sorry, right? And admit when I'm wrong, because I owe my community honesty, thoroughness, and being fair, right? When I commentate. And being authority is not fun. It's not cool, right? You have to own what you say. And so I think a lot of times, so that's the last thing I want to say about if you're having fun, you're doing it right, is there's absolutely no good source for this information. When a TRPG commentator says to you, if you're having fun, you're doing it right, they are either ignorant, they are obfuscating, or what's the middle one there? Actually, yeah, or they're being disrespectful to the hobby. It never has a good source, and I think it's really important that we, as a tabletop role-playing commentator community, start to really stop giving this advice, because there's a lot of new people coming into the hobby, and this is damaging. Like, if you give this advice to people, they're gonna run game after game after game. As long as they have fun, they're gonna think they're doing it right? Whereas, and by the way, I don't even think if everybody's having fun they're doing it right. I think the reality is, tabletop role-playing game, to be a good game master is incredibly difficult. And it's challenging, and you're going to fail, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to be frustrated. But if you're going to master this thing, you got to put in the blood, sweat, and tears. And that, that's not a popular thing to say, but it's a lot more honest and true and more valuable than if you're having fun, you're doing it right. That is bad advice, and TRPG commentators need to stop saying it. Take care.